So from Person Senior High School at the time, you went to the University of Virginia, went up the road a little bit to Charlottesville, and produced a legendary ACC career by any stretch of the imagination. Three All ACC nominations, 2 ACC Player of the Years, and All-American, and of course set multiple records at UVA. So a lot of people know what it's like to be a good or great high school athlete. What does it take to be a great college athlete, and not just great at your school, but you're talking about greatness on a level of the best conference in the country, and you're the best player in the best conference in the nation? What does that take? Because only you here in Person County can speak to that.
It's a lot. It takes a lot of hard work. To be honest with you, and I just spoke to a group of people from UVA just last week. My time at UVA, at the University of Virginia, was intense. It was hard because, again, I am going to a place, a university that there's not a lot of faces like mine. And I was going to a program right after Dawn. I love her so very much, and I'm so very proud of her. She was my visit. They had had so much success, and we had to continue that success. So the road had been paved for us. That was a lot of hard work. There were a lot of sacrifices. To this day, I strongly feel that if I can make it through Virginia, and that's what we would say, if you make it through Virginia, you can make it anywhere in the world, anywhere in life. And that's so very true. Not only did I make it to Virginia, I graduated in 4 years with a degree in history, and I emphasized a specialized study in Russian history. I actually was told that I probably should have chosen another university because University of Virginia was academically tough, and that I should probably have chosen another university, that I was going to struggle, from somebody from my hometown. But not only did I go, I graduated in 4 years. I was a successful athlete. I worked really hard, and I built a lot of bonds, and this would be something that I carry with me forever. You have to sacrifice a lot. I had a lot of injuries in college. Time management, you have to learn the art of time management. In that first semester, I did not. I had no idea what time management was. It was just like, oh, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going here, I'm doing this. I got to go to practice. Why I got to go to practice? But once you learn how to manage your time, you can achieve whatever you want to out of your college experience. And I had a lot of former players that came back and poured into me, saying, you know, like, what else do you want to do outside of basketball? But in order to do these things outside of basketball, you have to make sure academically you're up to par. And then basketball, there can't be any wavering, because let's just face it, I got a scholarship to go play basketball that afforded me a great education. I couldn't let basketball slip. I joined a sorority while I was there. I'm a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I did all of that while being a top athlete at the University of Virginia in a top conference. It was a great grooming period for me. I learned a lot, but I made a lot of sacrifices as well. And whether it was sacrifices with my time or sacrifices with my body, I had several surgeries from just training hard, trying to be the very best that I can be. I literally tried not to ever take any time off. Just wanted to work on my gift.
Okay, and from there, you went pro. Graduated in '96. You turned pro. But not here, not in America. Mm-hmm. The opportunity did not exist yet, or at least not on a level that it should have yet. So tell me where you went that first year out of college.
So when I graduated in 1996, there had been talks of the WNBA coming. But at the time, there was a league already formed called the ABL. And there was a team in Richmond called the Richmond Raids. And I had been in contact with some people, and they were talking about possibly getting me in the ABL, but everyone was concerned about my injuries, and rightfully so. I get it. I had injuries in college, whether it was stress fracture, ankle, had a couple knee surgeries. I definitely understand the business side, especially even more now. I decided to go overseas and take a year away. The training was, you still train hard. We trained twice a day, but it was over the course of a year. So I was able to kind of get some rest before I went. I went over in September. I played in Oviedo, Spain on a university team, met some amazing people. As much as we want to think it's glamorous, it was hard. Nothing bothered me when I was inside the lines, 94 feet. It was my safe haven. It was my heaven on earth, because I just wanted to play basketball. I just wanted to feel the leather in my hands. I wanted to compete. I wanted to try to make the other opponent look as bad as possible. Nobody in my mind is, you can't stop me, so throw everything you got at me. You're not going to stop me. But once that ball stopped bouncing and the lights went out, being overseas was hard for me. Because you're away from all your family and friends. If I was a professional athlete overseas now, I think I would be perfectly fine, right? We have all this technology. But the very first time I communicated with home, I remember putting coins in the telephone outside my apartment, and I put about $20 just to be able to talk for 45 seconds. And it crushed me. Because I was like, how's everybody? And it just hung up. And I was like, wow, I'm really away from my family. I am over here by myself. I remember crying all night, getting up, going to practice, and being on top of the world for those 2-4 hours. And then coming back home to my apartment, like, what do I do now? And that was an adjustment. But as time went on, I met some exchange students that was from Canisius College and got to know them, and they really helped me do, like when you're in Rome, do as the Romans, like help me integrate into life in Spain, in Oviedo, and learn different things and figure out places to go. So it was tough. And as I continued to go overseas after the WNBA, it got better. But sometimes I feel like I came to be a pro athlete at the wrong time, because now it would be I wouldn't say it would be easy, but I would have so many different things that I could tap into and use to communicate, because that's a huge thing, just being able to communicate with home. And then the WNBA came. So it was the first year of the WNBA. I remember getting my papers over there. They came through on a fax, because that was another way I used to communicate. It came through on a fax, and signed my contract, faxed it back, and then I later got the originals, and now I was going to be a pro in my home country. Didn't know where I was going to go yet, and so then the draft came, and then they said Utah, and I said, what? It's like, oh, congratulations, you're going to Utah. I said, Utah? Okay, thank you. I remember going, calling my dad at Eaton. He was working at Eaton. And I was like, Daddy, I got drafted, but I'm going to Utah. I don't know anything about Utah. And he said, well, that map in the car, go get it. And so I went and got the map and looked at it, and I saw where Utah was. So went out to Utah. It was the very first year. There's nothing else to base it on. We didn't know what we didn't know, because there It was the first year. And it was an amazing experience to be a pioneer, something I hold so very dear. It's only a handful of us that knows what it's like when that first second tipped off the clock. And to see the W in its 25th year, I was so proud. It's like being a proud big sister at this point. To see the young ladies and the causes, especially during the COVID year, them using their voices, finding their voices, using their voices. We've all had it, and I think it was just the perfect timing. I definitely know it was the perfect timing for their voices to be heard, because we've used our voices before, but when the world was at a standstill, it rang louder. And I'm so proud of those young ladies and their efforts, because it brought so much attention to the things that we have been fighting for years for women and the equality in women's sports.
So you had a very successful first year in the WNBA, averaged almost 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and that netted you a place on the All-WNBA second team. So right out the gate, you're on the All-WNBA team. So tell me, what kind of a confidence builder was that for a 22-year-old? You're going up against some legends, some women who had already become legends even before there was a WNBA, and you put your name right there among them. What was that like?
It was a huge confidence builder. However, you got to come back. So it's like your sophomore act. You got to come back with something different. You got to work harder. And your game has to evolve. And that's what I don't think people realize, that you make it pro, you come in, you make an impact, right? People are now, oh, that team has Wendy Palmer, that team has this player, that player. You got to plan for them. You got to do a scouting report. And you see that, wait, I can play with the big names, the people that they're marketing for this WNBA. I can play right there with them, like tit for tat. But what people don't understand is what it takes to be able to follow up that first act. Like every year, for 11 years, I had to bring something totally different to my game. I had to evolve my game every year, because every year that I was in the league, younger, faster, stronger players were coming into the league, because the evolution of the player evolved, and it will continue to evolve. You know, we always talk about who's the best player, Michael Jordan, Kobe, or LeBron. They're in different eras. They're all great players. We always want to tag someone the GOAT, but they're all great players in their eras. It would be wonderful to see them all in one era, in the prime, in their very prime. I like to listen to the GOAT conversations, because people have interesting takes on it. But I can just appreciate, having been a professional athlete, I understand it. I don't know if Michael Jordan could do what LeBron has been doing. I don't know if LeBron could have done what Jordan did, because it's two different eras, you know. It would be great to see them all on one team, even with the women. You know, I played with Magic Paula over in Brazil. She is someone that people don't talk about a whole lot, but this woman could do everything. And then you come back here to the States and you have the Lisa Leslies, you have Cynthia Coopers, you have the Andrea Stinsons, you have Cheryl Swoops, you have all these players that people on the East Coast didn't really know at the time, because women's basketball was very much regionalized. You know, obviously you knew about Tennessee, so it was Tennessee, it was Connecticut. If you were here, you knew about Virginia, obviously North Carolina State with Kay Yow, but there were parts of the country that didn't even know women's basketball really existed. So that's the era that I came in through, just trying to get people to understand we're here. We've been playing basketball. We can do the same thing that the men are doing. You just have to know that we're here and come support. So my 11 years, that was where we were in the WNBA. And doing that, to be a part of that, every year you got to bring, to the question, you got to bring something every year. And that's hard. Because being a pioneer, it won't be anybody else that's a pioneer of the WNBA except for those players that were there the very first year. And that has cemented me into history in a different way than any other player.
Yeah. You talked about all of those great players. I'm gonna read out some legends that you played against in your All-Star Game appearance in 2000. In your All-Star Game appearance, you played on the same team as Nikisha Sales, Shamika Holesclaw, Teaspoon, Teresa Witherspoon, and on the West, because by this time you had come back east, on the West, you played against Lisa Leslie, Yolanda Griffith, Tina Thompson. So those are the people you were guarding. Then there was Cheryl Swoops, Cynthia Cooper, and Tisha Pinachero. So you played with real legends, not just people that were great for their era or great at that moment, good at that moment. You played with all-time great players whose names still ring out 20-something years later.
Oh yeah. The thing about the WNBA when it started initially, people had been playing overseas for years professionally, women. We had been playing overseas for years professionally prior to coming. So the Italian league, the French league, the Spanish league, they have been playing since the 70s as professional athletes. So it wasn't like we just threw a league together and everybody came together without having been training. All these women have been working out, training, playing overseas. So collectively we come into this WNBA, such a great company to be in. I remember just sitting around looking at everybody, just like, wow. Whether I had heard about them in college or heard about them having been overseas, we were all on one stage. So you're right. We think of legends. Out of those groups, I think pretty much all of them are legends. Maybe not one or two of them, but legends of the WNBA. So I came at a very special time in the WNBA. And it was 8 teams, and it was a sisterhood. We competed fiercely on the court. But I remember going out afterwards, just sharing stories, helping each other out. The older players teaching us how to be professional athletes. Such a great company that you're bringing a lot of things that I kind of forgotten about. So it's pretty cool. And those people, they're amazing people, right? They've given so much to the game of basketball. Whether you have a big name or not, so many of us have given so much to the women's game to be able to see it where it is today. And that's where I sit back and I'm just proud. And my prayer is that they will continue to move it forward so that, generations unborn have the opportunity to play right here in America and not have to go overseas, because the women are still supplementing their incomes overseas to be considered a true pro, even though they're pro here, not to say they're not pro, but men that play professional sports don't have to go overseas during the summers.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. The average WNBA player makes around $80,000. The top WNBA players are in the 200,000 range, around $220,000. The top NBA players at this point in time are making more than $40 million per year. Now, for greater context, Diana Taurasi is the all-time leading scorer. She's in that conversation that you and I are about to have about the GOATs. We're gonna have that conversation. But she's in it firmly, and has been putting herself in that conversation since her days at UConn. Mm-hmm. John Wall did not play 1 minute of basketball last year. He made $41 million, $41,250,000 to be exact. Diana Taurasi, the all-time leading scorer, made $228,000, meaning John Wall made more than $41 million more than Diana Taurasi in this past calendar year. And she's in the conversation for GOAT. What needs to be done to improve compensation in the WNBA so that women don't have to go to other countries and risk some of the geopolitical crises that we're seeing now, and really so women can be comfortable playing at home?
I think for so long we've tried to prove why we need to be paid this money. Hands down, in the last few years, you see why we need to be paid. And the women should have comparable salaries to the men. You know, there have been arguments about, oh, they don't play the time span because we play during the summers and stuff like that. But we are professional athletes. Why is it that other countries value us and will pay us $1 million? And I'm saying us, obviously I haven't played in a long time, but as a former women's basketball player, they value having us on their teams and paying us the money that we are so deserving of. And then here, and I think for the longest time they tried to pit it, against the men versus the women. And I am happy for the NBA because it took them 50 years, right? I understand, but there's a model. So we know that this is what we need to do. Let's just do it. They're finally taking us serious. And it's not towards any of the male athletes. I think for the most part, everybody has always had a great respect for the women's game. And I'm so happy to see so many NBA players supporting it now. Football players, everybody supporting the WNBA and, you know, attending to the games. And I think it's about visibility. Everybody can see it now. When I first started, my parents had to get a dish to see me play in a game that they may or may not get to see when I was in Utah. So you can go on the internet and watch games. It's past time. I don't really have a whole lot more to say other than pay the women. To be a professional athlete and you're not getting paid as a professional athlete in 2022, insulting. It's a tragedy. It's that we have to go and fight. Soccer has to go and take them to court to get something that should just be there. Like, we have so much further to go in this country in a lot of things. Not just equality with pay with women and men, but, you know, whether it's basketball or soccer, we're professional athletes. Pay us as such, or pay them as such.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, you had a wonderful career. WNBA All-Star selection, All WNBA team selection, and even in 2004, you were awarded Most Improved Player of the Year when you were with the Connecticut Sun. And so that came after being traded a couple of years beforehand. And in 2003, for the first time, you weren't a full-time starter, but you were able to bounced back in 2004, and really that's what it was. The most improved player of the year was just a bounce back year for you.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't improve. You were already an all-star caliber player, but those numbers got back to where they used to be, where they normally were. So what was that time period like, having to reinvent yourself again to have that bounce back year?
I think, from being traded from Utah to Detroit to Orlando, and then the Orlando team has moved to Connecticut, it was a lot of transition. And someone put it to me in a good way. Like, trades are hard, right? Because it's like, on this hand, it's like, oh, they don't need you, but then on this hand, they want you. So in order to trade somebody has to want you. But you don't know what it's going to be like over there either. That does play an effect on you. Trades are hard. For me, it was hard. Maybe for other people, it wasn't, but a trade was hard. My parents actually on their way out to see me when I was traded to Orlando, and they had to reroute their, or was it Utah? It may have been Utah. And they had to reroute their flight, Utah, because it happens just like that. And you kind of hear rumblings and get a new coach. They want to move in a different direction. I had a Hall of Famer tell me that I just wasn't a good player, and I was like, and I distinctly having this conversation, and I just let him continue to say his piece, and I think he's a Hall of Famer, but say his piece, and I was like, it's okay if I don't fit your vision for your team. That is your right. You're the head coach. But what you will not do, and I dare not let you sit here do, is degrade me as a person or as a player, because what you don't want, someone else will. And he kind of took a look at me like, but that's where I had to draw the line in the sand. It's okay if they didn't want my services any longer, if they wanted a better player. And what it actually did was set them up for great success in the future, because they were able to get some draft picks. So that's the business side that people don't understand. You may see it, but you don't really understand it. And as a player going through it, it doesn't feel good, right? But when you realize it's a business and it happened, and it's okay, because I still got to fulfill a dream, and that was to play basketball. So trades are hard, and that bounce back year, moving, a lot had happened leading up to that. My aunt was murdered here in Person County. So my aunt Lala Pearl McGee, Burton Taxi. That was my aunt, that was my mom's sister. So what people don't know about that leading up to that time and those couple of years, again, you just see people. You don't know their story. You don't know what they're going through. So I come home from Italy, had just had lunch, a late lunch with my aunt when that happened. So I lost my aunt. The next January, I lost my best friend. I didn't even want to play basketball anymore. That was the hardest time of my professional career. I didn't want to hear a ball bounce. I just didn't want to play because I had suffered so much loss. Yeah. So that bounce back year, that most improved year, was after having to step away and say, you know what, you got to go on. And thinking about my aunt, our conversations, thinking about my best friend and our conversation, and not giving up, because I wanted to give up. I didn't want to play anymore. And I had to really dig deep and do a lot of soul searching, a lot of praying, just to lace my shoes back up. Because I didn't go overseas that year. I actually started teaching. But by the grace of God, I was able to rekindle the love and press on. And so I feel that that was definitely orchestrated by God. And I didn't play long after that. 3 more years? But again, when you're on the outside, you don't really know what people are going through. Because I didn't talk about that time period a lot. It's hard. It's hard to talk about, even to this day. But that was a tough period. And that's what professional athletes go through that other people don't see. But because we're professional athletes, we're not supposed to talk about loss. We're not supposed to talk about depression. We're not supposed to talk about these things because we're larger than life. We are a lot of people's role models, but we're still human beings. We still have lives going on off the court. So the bounce back year, that was God.